Okay.
Welcome, everyone. Tonight we're going to be hearing Burt talk about his latest book, Four Unknown Facts of Reality, which some of you already have. Tonight, Burt's going to go into details about not only the contents of the book, but also about how it came and the miraculous manner in which he received it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah. It all happened about 3 years ago. I was giving a talk, satsang, if you will, and one in the crowd asked me, he said, Burt, he said, can I ask you a personal question? I said, sure. He said, well, you've been doing this for 50 years. What have you learned? And but without actually thinking too much about it, it just came like a flash. I said, I have learned to trust I am. And I left it at that. And I kept on going. But later on, a few days later, I kept receiving many emails asking me, what do you mean by I am? You know, how do you work, and blah, 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 and so on. So there are about 20 emails. So then I decided to write an article in which I would explain it completely in detail and then make PDF copies and send it to all these people. uh, then I went to bed at night and and slept like always. I was alone at the time. But at 3 o'clock in the morning, I felt like something is pushing me up to get up. And I got up, and it's as if I wasn't in a daze, but it's something took over. I went on the board, which is next to the washroom, and I wrote 4 unknown facts of reality. And most people are not aware of these facts at all, but they're going to be explained to me. And so I wanted to listen to this voice. It's very important. And so I took off the phone. I was using the regular phone at this time. I unhooked it, and I made sure that I don't answer the door. And I had enough bananas to eat until this article was written. And I just didn't want anything to interfere with this energy that was coming through me. I can call it a voice, or I can call it intuition. I don't really want to know what to call it, but it was a very strong motivator. And I couldn't help but do it. And there was nothing else I wanted to do but that. And so I sat down in front of the computer and I started writing. Now, as I started writing, the first thing was that the first one, the very first one, number one, in other words, and there are 4, was the major one. The other 3 are merely supporting it, okay? And the major one, I thought to myself, it's got to be God. And the voice was very firm with that, and it says, if you call it God, people will think it's a religion. And then I said, well, then call it love, because, I was thinking about unconditional love, and it says, yes, it is unconditional love. But if you call it love, then people will have an idea what they think love is. And everybody has an idea what love is according to how they see it. But love has no limit. So then I said, what should I call it? And he said, call it emptiness. Well, to tell you the truth, the moment I heard the word emptiness, I didn't even want to write it down because I didn't like it, what emptiness does. And then it began to tell me, it just almost like stuffed me to tell me what this means. And it's like picture a vast ocean, an energy field, but this energy field is miles and miles all around you. And it's made up of one quality, unconditional love. And it said that most people, don't know how blessed they are, because this unconditional love is with everyone, pushing people to be unconditionally loving. But because they do not know it, because they're not aware of it, then fears come in its place. The fear that you're not being loving, the fear that you're not doing good enough, the fear, etc., etc. So the point was here that this emptiness itself was clear that it doesn't come as a thought, and people would see it as a thought. It is not a thought. It is not even an emotional feeling. It is a driving force in everyone. And this driving force is that you want to feel good. You can't help it. For example, the emptiness itself, when we talk about emptiness, we have to refer to something that has no time and space. It's completely beyond time. So when we think of any feeling or anything that would express it, we cannot think of time. Time means past and future, and time is always negative, just like guilt, shame, fear, and so on. Okay, these all based on time, past. But this particular emptiness is based on absolute nothing. And the very nothing is that all that space that is constantly around us. When our mind is quiet, when we feel completely relaxed with who we are, in other words, we don't have a guilt feeling or anything like that. At that moment, the energy is assuming that when we allow ourselves to feel this energy around us, that very quietness, that very energy to be begins to manifest. For example, if you happen to be very agitated or upset or thinking negative, take a moment, close your eyes, and just empty your mind completely. If you're able to do it, you'll find that after a while you begin to feel more at peace. Okay, so what happened is that you entered the emptiness. Okay, so the empty is like, if I say to you, what is it you want more than anything in the world? And you'll say, well, I want $1 million, or I want to have made the right person to marry, or I would like to have a big house. I want to be successful in the future. But the key point, which people do not ask, is that why do you want them? And then, of course, you immediately say it because you're surrounded by that love, unconditional love. Say, oh, because I want to be happy. See? So that unconditional love is itself happiness, but happiness is not dependent on anything achieved. It is itself the very energy of our being. And so when, when we begin to feel it as the very emptiness of our true nature, then we place the importance of it in the number one section. But we go on from there. Number two, and here's the rub, and here is where it gets a little complicated, but not so much if we pay attention. Number two is called emptiness again, but it refers to the greatest suffering of mankind. I didn't know that when I studied psychology. I didn't know that at all. And as a matter of fact, Susie and I went into psychology and how they interpret the suffering. And the suffering came out into 28 disorders, emotional disorders, right? But we also saw how the 28 disorders all have one answer: entering that emptiness. And when you enter that emptiness, you begin to see that there is nothing solid happening there. You don't need to go and take a drug or medicine or anything like that to deal with it. You deal with it simply by becoming aware of what is happening to you. But in this case, we'll talk about it as the third point of the item. So we're still on the second one. The second one means this, that the emptiness is the most frightful thing there is to the average person. People won't admit it, but they don't like the word. And one time I was talking to myself, actually, or I was talking to you. I says, why is it that my book is not selling as well? We only made $500 or so for
Last year cells, yeah.
last year, yeah.
Mhm.
And then, of course, nobody wants to know that emptiness is our true nature. But when we go into it, we'll find it richer than anything we can imagine. And the reason it is called emptiness is because it has no equivalent in as far as uh, expression is concerned. You see, think of the most beautiful thing you can think of. Think of anything that really makes you feel happy. Okay. And the moment you do, you find you have no words to really express it. Okay. So when we begin to feel we're able to enter the emptinesses of our being, it's like not being a human anymore. You're being itself. That being itself is happiness. It is love. It is joy. It is fulfillment. But until we understand it, the ego mind breaks down and goes into different maladies, into illnesses that most people go to a psychiatrist for. And as a matter of fact, 90% of everybody suffers from one form of self-consciousness or another. And this need not be if we begin to see what our true nature is. Uh, now, the thing is, why call it emptiness? I'm repeating myself because the word emptiness has no beginning or end. If you call it anything at all, people will, what is the word?
They'll have a concept.
Will have a concept about it, right? The moment you have a concept, you're finished. Because the state we're talking about has no concept. It is a feeling of joy. It is a feeling of love so great that it motivates everything in you. It's the most important thing there is in our life. And as a matter of fact, many people can live 100 years and still not discover that the purpose of love is this emptiness itself, known as unconditional love. So now there's another factor here. You said, Bert, that the first one, you can call it God, but you're not calling it God because you don't want to be a religion. See? So, and the second one is also emptiness. That's very confusing. One is the greatest suffering in the world, and the other one is the highest intelligence and the highest love. How can you combine them? See, this is where the book comes in. This is the incredible beauty of the book is that when you combine them, that you wake up. For example, okay, we say that the number two has that the emptiness causes all the suffering, right?
Mm-hmm.
All diseases come from the fear of that suffering, from that fear of missing something.
So it's
just like death, you know.
like the avoidance of emptiness.
The avoidance of emptiness.
So all suffering,
all suffering,
psychological disorders.
Yeah, and it was after the writing of the come to the third one that I realized, my goodness, actually you reminded me of it too much later. It says, well, therefore, if number two is the greatest suffering of mankind, number one being also emptiness, we must actually fear it. We fear God, therefore. See, I never wrote that in my book, but I realized it later that this is true. It is fear of God. We don't even like the word. As a matter of fact, we blame God for everyone. Your child dies for no reason at all. We begin to hate God. He took my child's life. God has nothing to do with what's happening in the world. And I didn't know that when I studied psychology. I thought God created the world. But you see, God is. The most beautiful thing you can think of God is God is. The isness itself has not created the world. What created the world is consciousness. Consciousness created the body. Consciousness created the ego. Consciousness created everything that we experience in the world. That doesn't mean that consciousness is bad. It means that we chose it when, you see, in the beginning, going back in the very beginning of time, because we never started. We were never born literally. We were always where. We were always where, pure aware spirit. You see? So in the very beginning, we were all one. And that oneness, that one energy was called God. Okay, so when we talk of God, we're not talking about one particular individual. We're talking about a wholeness. Everything is that one energy. If we miss this particular energy, we miss the very motivation of our life. And we find that whatever is happening to us, we blame God for it. We can't help it. But the moment we are in danger, it's been said also in Vietnam, for example, when people were shooting each other and they were in the foxholes and they see their bodies being shot up, the first thing they said is, oh God. People prayed, it's automatic, okay? Because in our heart, we know that this is the primary force, the primary energy. The second one teaches us that everything that we're going through on this earth is suffering. Suffering means that there are lessons for us to learn. So I don't really call it suffering. We call it that it's a hard life. Okay? And many masters say, including Ramana Maharshi, who says it takes a brave soul to be born to earth because you have to go through working, taking care of the body all the time. In other words, you're focused on this work that we do on earth. And then when you pass away, and you go to another realm, often called heaven. But many times when people die, they're sent back to earth. And there's always the words being said to them, you're not yet ready, you've got work to do. And this has happened in the fifth dimension within the last 30, 40 years, where the medical science has been able to bring people back to life whose heart has stopped even for a few hours. As a matter of fact, there was a case about a Russian, and
he was in the morgue for 3 days.
He was in the morgue for 3 days, and he still survived. And then he talked about how he came to believe in God. And he was a Russian communist. And when he wanted to escape to the States, but somehow or other they caught up with him, the Russians, and they killed him. They run him over with the car, right?
I think he was a physicist or something.
He was a physicist, right? This is an important case. He was in the morgue for 3 days. And when they took him out to be autopsied, right?
He was alive.
He was alive. And then he told his story and what happened when he was in heaven. See, so kind of goes along with what we're talking about here. Now, we find that if we ever study about near-death experiences, you will find everybody will say the same thing. I died twice. And I had the same symptoms, realizing that our true nature is spirit, not the body. And the body has nothing to do, the God has nothing to do with the body per se, okay? Although miracles do happen when they are needed. So the important thing here is that we start realizing our true nature. Number 3 is what to do about it, how to work your life so that you realize that you are emptiness. And emptiness itself is the perfection of unconditional love. Because unconditional love is not something. It is the very essence of life itself, all around us. When we begin to understand it, when someone becomes a master, it means they mastered life. It's no big deal. When somebody realizes their true nature, they're very loving. They don't try to be loving. They simply look around and see that everyone that they see is themselves. We are all one. And this is the biggest realization. Now, the question arises is, How do we go about doing that? You go about doing that by two things, okay? One is forgiveness of yourself and the other, and two is to bring
Forgiveness?
for no no
Oh
no
no.
no no
Suffering of
no no no
emptiness? No.
no
And two.
no. With number two, with forgiveness, is we talked about it last night.
Compassion.
Compassion.
Right. That's how you know you've completed your forgiveness.
That's right. That's right.
When you start to feel
when you start
compassion.
having compassion,
Mhm.
compassion means this: that no matter how much someone has wronged you, no matter what they've done to you, when you begin to understand that what they did is because they saw in you what they didn't like, and so whatever they said to you, whatever they felt about you, you begin to see that they're not really bad. It is just that they are suffering and they're throwing it up on you. You're projecting. It's just like when you judge someone, you're not really being bad. You're just being an ego. So at that point, you're feeling certain discomfort, and you throw it on to somebody else, because whatever you dislike about anybody, it is because it's in you. Otherwise, how can you think of it? How can you see it? So compassion means this: that you begin to understand that what the person in front of you is doing is not against you, even though they're trying to kill you at that point. What they're doing is what they're feeling inside: the pain, the fear. Remember that the greatest fear is the fear of emptiness. The fear of emptiness means it could mean death to a person. It could mean the loss of someone you love. It could be so many things that would actually feel like killing you. Okay, that's a great loss. But another great loss is when you turn against God. And the reason you turn against God, because God is emptiness. And your greatest fear is emptiness. So if you understand the emptiness that's in you, you are going to blame someone or something for it. But eventually you'll find, when you get cancer or you get something serious and you're going to die, why did God do this to me? You see, when we are on earth. So in other words, this happens almost automatically, because I didn't know this before in psychology, is that number two, the the emptiness of number two is our greatest fear. And unless we understand it as the other side of unconditional love, we do not rise above it. We rise above it when we start forgiving ourselves for the way we think. We're thinking most of the time negative thoughts. Believe it or not, most people think hundreds of negative thoughts a day. Little things that are creating, more or less suffering. Um, so when you keep creating these things, you need to look at them and then see that everybody is going through the same thing. This creates an ability to be aware of how others feel and think too. So you create again the word
Compassion.
compassion.
Mhm.
Yeah, and compassion brings the big change, because compassion means I understand what you're feeling because I felt it too. You see. Anyway, I'm going over it now. The last one is trust. And when we begin to trust our ability to let go, our ability to forgive, then we trust I am. So, in other words, the first one, the emptiness, number one, is also the I am of you. Everyone is I am. The 7 or 8 billion people of this earth, they're all the same one I am. So when you say I am and you stop, okay, you cease to keep on thinking and talking, because the moment you understand that I am is the complete being of you. But anyway, we're going to be doing this every Thursday. We take it deeper and
Saturday.
deeper every Saturday. Sorry. forgive me. Yeah, every Saturday, and it will get deeper and deeper until it becomes a way of life. And you'll find it's just amazing, amazing. I'm amazed at this thing that came through me just 3 years ago, and I try to live by it as much as I can. So, do you have any questions?
I just actually had an aha moment when you were talking earlier. The first reality is there's only emptiness, which
That's
is
right.
also God and is also love and
Right.
eternal life.
Yeah.
And the second one is the fear of emptiness, which is also the fear of God. And all psychological disorders are like an invasion of this emptiness, but you could look at the whole manifest universe essentially is an avoidance of the emptiness.
That's right. Beautiful, honey. Yes, and that's it. Once you become aware of it, in the beginning, you're not aware of this. Okay, you would say, I just don't like it. Just like I expressed it in the beginning, you see. I don't like it, I don't like the word. But now I love it. You see, because the very word itself, when it's understood, it is unconditional love. You see, so the two have to be brought in on several lines. First, there is the emptiness, which is the I am of you, the unconditional love of you totally. And then number two, whenever you're upset, whenever there's anything going not what it should be, okay? You're suffering. You bring the understanding that that very fear is a result of how you are treating number one. So therefore, one and two, when the moment you bring them together, they become one. And that oneness is called, aha, I know who I am. You realize your true nature. So in other words, you bring the emptiness into fruition. And now you begin to understand things you never understood before. It's so amazing. So does that...
Yeah, and another thing that just occurred to me about, you said how people tend to, even if they're atheists, they blame all the problems in their life, if they were honest with themselves, on God.
Right.
Right? I'm having a bad day, it's God's fault. But I realized God is this emptiness.
That's
God
right.
is this unconditional love.
That's right.
God doesn't have attributes that allow him to judge or punish or to create
Beautiful.
wrongdoings.
It doesn't judge, it doesn't punish. Right.
So the I am is what you are. The I am is the emptiness, and the I am is oneness with this source, also called God.
That's right.
So when we blame God for our problems, what we've done now is we've assigned to this creative and the creation energy of this emptiness or God or love there. And we've assigned it human terms, because as human terms, we judge, we complain, we think people cause harm. So we're then projecting even onto God this blame for what goes wrong in our lives.
Even Sigmund Freud, who came up with now known as psychology, and people get PhDs on it. But what they are studying really is how we have offended God.
Right.
How we have really gone against this emptiness that we truly are. But Sigmund Freud didn't know it at the time.
But emptiness can't be offended. That's the good news.
Oh yeah, right. Okay.
So even though it's a hard term to take,
right. Yeah,
it's really
right.
it really is a great joy to know the truth.
That's right. When you begin to know the I am of you and the beauty that you are, they were so beautiful. Really, you begin to feel this love automatically. And that is all you need. There is nothing wrong with you, nothing ever. You are love, period. Love is the only thing that makes sense in this suffering world. And this is what we are learning all the time, to be compassionate, to forgive. If we don't, then we suffer more. Not because somebody is punishing us, but we're punishing ourselves. You see? So this is what is happening, because you become guilty. Every time you try to punish somebody or something for the way you feel, okay, you feel guilt after.
Well, because they are you. There's only oneness.
That's right.
So it's just coming right back at you.
It's coming right back at you.
So the moment you've forgiven to a level of compassion, you are also feeling the compassion yourself. You're also feeling that sense of innocence.
Yeah.
That sense of peace.
That's right.
Now, when you punish someone and when the guilt coming back to you, what do you do about the guilt? You forgive yourself, right?
That's right. Right. And you make sure that it is complete by this compassion. Can I feel compassion for this person who's feeling this way? If you don't feel the compassion, then you mean that you need to forgive a little more to see that what is happening is also created by you. Because if you're involved in any situation at all that somebody has caused, but you are involved in it, that involvement of you means that you are feeling the same thing. You are doing the same thing that they are doing. This clarity, this seeing becomes itself the compassion.
It takes two to tango, right?
Right. That's very good. Yes.
So
Yes.
Okay.
That's why it's called duality.
Yeah, that's the duality that created this,
That's right. Yes.
this reality.
Yes.
Now, Bert, I read your book in entirety and I listened to your talk about it many times. But when you just talked about happiness versus suffering. For example, when you're saying happiness, joy, all that is the attributes of or it's emptiness. Emptiness should be, should be feeling good, right? Should be about
Right.
feeling
Because
good,
happiness is not achieved.
right?
Happiness is the very
It's the
emptiness you
default
are.
state. It should be the default state,
That's right. The default
right?
state. Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
I just had that realization that I think
Excellent.
yeah, the realization is this: when we are in you said happy, we were when we're in a state of joy, excitements, we seem to go beyond time because we seem to accelerate and forget about time, in a place of timeless.
That's right.
But when we are suffering, right, it's quite the opposite. We feel so bounded by time. We feel time is going so slowly, and we seem to want to escape from it, but we can't, right? Time is the limit of our suffering.
Right. And
So
any attempt to get rid of suffering increases the suffering.
yeah,
Okay. Why? Because you're making it real. See, God wants us to know that there's only love, unconditional love. Unconditional means that no judgment, nothing in it, no wrong. But unless we are able to be innocent enough to see this obviousness, we keep punishing ourselves. I shouldn't have done that. There's something wrong with me. You see, I should be better. There's no such thing as I should be. Be who you are. Say, I am. And when you begin to understand I am, which is the perfection of being, that very I am, the moment you understand it, you begin to feel. You begin to feel that new energy coming into you. That doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen when you've done it for a year or so. Now you might say, a year? What's a year in a lifetime? Really? You know? So what I'm saying is that this is something that goes through 5 points. It's a truth. What do you go through to get to truth? Number one.
You have to be willing to consider it or say it out loud.
Number two.
You have to see that it would be really nice if it were true. I can see that maybe in certain circumstances it might be true, but as far as I'm concerned, it's not really true.
Number three.
Well, it's starting to pop up as being true more and more often. And so there are times when you say, okay, in this case, it's true, but not in every case. But yeah, it seems to be true in some
And
cases.
number five.
It's true.
It's true. Wow, it's true. That's called a realization. Okay, but it might take a year. With some people,
For 20 years.
I had a young woman from China, and she came to see me for 3 days, and she got it. She got it, and she awakened. Oh my God, I cried. It's oof, so beautiful. So time, when I say 1 year, I'm just so that I don't want people to think that I can do it overnight. But If the desire is strong, desire to believe that in you lies all the beauty, all the love, all the energy, everything is perfect in you, if you just begin to see it and begin to think in a form of emptiness, you see, then you find that emptiness is love, is joy, is peace, is happiness themselves. They're all empty. Try to visualize any one of them. You cannot see anything in them. You can see something in guilt or something in shame. You can see a condition, but look at happiness. Where is it? Just is. It's empty. Love, it's empty. Joy, it's empty. You know, any of you that have children, look at a child's eyes, 2 years of, 2 years old, and they're totally empty. Their nature is innocence, you see? And when we grow up and become hardened by the world, we can soften again and become innocent again. And that is a promise that even Jesus gave us, that promise. And incidentally, Jesus said, I am the truth and the life. But people think that he means he is the truth and the life. No, he wasn't thinking about himself. He said, I am the way and the truth and the life. You see, he emphasized the I am. In the same way, Moses, for example, it's in the Bible, he went up in the mountain and there was a burning bush or something like this. And he saw it as God. And then he asked the light and he said, what shall I call you? And according to the Bible, the voice came, I am that I am. And that is the name of God, you see? So anyway, so the I am is the very nature of your being, the very perfection of your being. And is not achieved, it's awakened. People talk about how do I achieve it? How do I get it? You don't get it, you don't achieve it. You're already it, but don't know it because you think you're an ego. You think you are this body. That doesn't mean you're not. But in everyday life, we pay almost 90% or more attention to the body than we do our true nature. See, when your true nature becomes your focus, from the moment you wake up till the moment you go to bed, you know that you're a spirit. Your body becomes even more beautiful because it becomes healthier. So this is the point. Of course, you do your exercise and you eat well, but you'll find that you don't have to think about the body so much when you start really focusing on the love that you are. If the family, you love your wife and children and vice versa. If you're at home, you love your work. Whatever you're doing, you put total love. When you love something totally, it becomes creative. The creative impulse then begins to create a life that is very, very beautiful. See, all this is when we become creative, when we love something so much that it takes over and begins to talk to us. It begins to create its own life, its own being. Are there any questions?
That's exactly what I want to ask you here, Bert, is that can we be in the state of I am and be active at the same time? Because
and be what?
And being active at the same time.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Because you
Oh,
often find yourself, sometimes trailblazing, leading, or creating. At the same time, it seems that we open up a room for ego to come in to drive it, and especially when we have some external.
Remember that when you are doing something you really love, it's creative. It doesn't matter what it is. If you love it, the energy to be creative in it becomes automatic. If you try to take control of it, then you begin to lose it because it is love that is motivating you. It is inspiration. I learned all this not by studying psychology, not even my own two deaths that you had. I learned this when I when I wanted to serve those people who asked me, Bert, what have you learned in all those years? And then I said, really nothing. I just learned to trust I am. And then I said, oh my God, what have I said here? This is beautiful. I felt, and then something made me actually write it. But instead of an article, it turned out to be a book. And so I didn't write the book. It came through my hands, but it wrote itself. And this is the beautiful thing about inspiration, inspiration, that's beautiful. It means inspired by spirit. You see?
So from the emptiness. So what Wei was asking about, when you have to take action in the world, you can still take action out of the inspiration from emptiness, as opposed
That's
to out
right.
of the
But it's motivated
ego.
by love all the
Right.
time, motivated by love.
Mhm.
You care about people so that when you do a job, you're thinking about their welfare, you're thinking about their progress. You are happy then when you see them growing in that. You see, it's part and parcel. That leads to the success of your life, and your life becomes very, very rich. You see,
It's to be
because
selfless.
was that
It's to be selfless, right?
exactly the word selflessly? Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, selfless. Say I am. Don't say I am John. I am this. I am Bert. You see, I am, and that's enough. That's complete in itself. Yeah, and it's such a beautiful thing to say often.
Very good. Shall we see if Jesse, Ramsey, and Kelly have any questions?
Oh yes, please. Yes.
Yeah. I guess Susie, you can unmute them if they can ask questions.
Who has a question?
I have a question.
Okay, hang on a second. There we go.
Oh hi.
Hi, Bert.
Hi.
Hi.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again. So after reading your book a bunch of times, it took me a while to get familiar with the word emptiness, because it's so true. The emptiness for all of life, it feels empty, of void, of joy, of just empty, scared. Oh my God, I want to fill it up or whatever. And
Right.
getting familiar with it, for me, listening to your old satsangs, you had mentioned about uh, pure awareness is aware, self-aware, self-organizing, and I still have my experience of that emptiness feels the same as being aware of being aware. What are your thoughts on that?
Perfect. Yes. Yes. Being aware of being aware is simply this. Your true nature is pure awareness.
Right.
Okay, which means emptiness.
Right.
Pure being. Okay. The moment you realize that I am pure awareness, and you become aware that you're aware, that's
Yes.
awakening.
Mhm.
That becomes awakening. You see, that's what awakening means.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's
Can I
wonderful.
connect back to him?
Mhm.
And it's wonderful. It's amazing. It's just the freedom of and another wonderful thing, thank you, is about forgiveness, because there's so many times I catch myself being hard on myself of forgetting being aware of being aware, but now I know how to get back to it by fully forgiving myself to the point where, okay, like it's okay, it's the human condition, like I'm
That's
getting
right.
caught in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being compassionate with your human condition is all part of the love.
Mhm.
So don't be hard on yourself. This is very, very important. Because if you're hard on yourself, then you're doing the opposite. You're not loving who you are. And to love who you are is a spiritual thing, because you're not loving the body alone. I mean, the body could you love it or whatever, but the point is that you're loving who you really are, which is the emptiness,
Right.
which is the source of all creation, the source of all being.
Thank you. Wonderful.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Initially, we were all one being,
Mhm.
and that one being was called God. It doesn't matter being called other names, but the thing is that. And then there was something happened where uh, the Course of Miracles calls it a mad idea. What would it be like to be separate? You
And
know,
boom,
and boom,
here
we
we are.
created consciousness.
Yeah, we got satsang now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean consciousness is bad. It's not. Consciousness is always there. It's just, but the consciousness that we have in daily life is based on beliefs, ideas, expectations, demands, which is all ego. And so that's not empty. That's full of garbage, you see? And that's why we suffer. Every time you fill your mind with something that is negative, your body will suffer. You can feel it. You can feel it. Sometimes in the beginning, initially, you just feel tired. And after that, it keeps on growing and growing. But, but the point is that to always be kind to yourself, that no matter what is happening, it need not take away your happiness of life, the happiness of being. And that is always there because the very nature of you right now is love, unconditional love. You're not loved or loving because you're loving because you're love.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Anybody else?
No, I don't see any other questions.
Well, I can ask a question in that case.
Okay.
Bert, we're coming to this world. We were born, and we're born into time and space, although the fundamental reality is emptiness, which is beyond time and space. But when we're born into it, that we are looking for stimulation, we're looking for stimulus, basically. We're looking, I mean, from a young age, we're looking to respond, to react to situation in order to
That's
survive.
right.
We
But
have
that's all part of the
fear. Yeah,
growth
we have a
process.
lot of fear rising us as a survival mechanism, so we can
Yes,
flee when danger come. Right. So my
that's right.
question is, if we were born into this to have experience, to experience it in time and space, and why is it that we always have to go back to emptiness, which is the eternal state, which is, you know, we can have it
That's right.
all to ourselves after we die, right?
Because the moment we chose to be born into the body, we also chose to be a combatant, to be against it. See, all our ego is the need to be important, self-important. To hell with you. All I care is myself. The ego, that's the way it thinks, you see? So that's the separation. And so we are creating that separation all the time. But as we grow, we 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 have to understand that that love, that unconditional love is always there. It is who we really are. In fact, check with yourself every time you're truly happy. And you find that you're truly happy when you're feeling loved or loving. Always. You just feel good. That feeling good is who you are. It is embedded in your nature. The fear, which is survival fear, that is also embedded in us, part of the ego, because when we chose to be born human, we also chose to be born in fear. You say, fear why? To survive. If there's a hole in front of you, you don't keep walking, you go around it. Otherwise, you'll fall into it. If we didn't have that sense of survival, that sense of, what is the word? Protecting yourself.
Self-preservation.
Self-preservation, that's the word. Thank you.
So we're trying to preserve the sense of a separate self,
That's right.
which
and
by its very existence comes with the suffering and pain.
that's right.
So we're trying to get what we already had, and we think we have to make an effort to get what we already had, which was the perfect peace
That's right.
of emptiness.
Beautiful, beautiful. Right. And that's going on all the time. Now, when we come to the point where the most important thing is always the I am of you, which is that love, that peace, that condition that you really are, the God nature, the I am. That is who you are. And that is eternal. That gets you home. As a matter of fact, it's been said even in the Course of Miracles, is that the moment you pass away from the body, that very moment that you're passing away, people think you are dying. But in truth, you're rejoicing. At that moment, you're the happiest. The moment you make the transition from the body to the spirit, you go into, and that has been attested by millions, not thousands, millions of cases who have gone through a state of death. Yeah. And they come back with these stories, and all of them do. And a lot of research has been done on the NDEs. And right now they say that the studies of near-death studies, that there's about 15 million people have reported transformation into unconditional love. When they come back, they're never the same. It is true that some of them, after a while, they were married and they divorced because the husband or wife did not keep up with them. Because when you're very advanced and then you have a wife or husband who simply are not in tune with you on what is happening, then strife arises, conflict arises, and conflict leads to separation again. See? But other cases where there are some cases where people became depressed because they did not want to continue on Earth. Earth was a little bit too hard for them, so they wanted to commit suicide. But internally, never do it. When your time is ready, when your time is up, yeah, you leave. And when you leave, you'll be happiest because you'll go back home. This is where we came from. All of us came from that pure state of being. When we became human and adopted a body and then tried to survive, then we forgot. We forgot who we were. And it was up to us to learn very slowly from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime who we are until we woke up. And that's the whole process of living.
I think Ramsey may have a question or want to say something. If Susie, you want to unmute Ramsey.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you put him on?
Yeah, I will. As soon as I figure it out.
Yes.
Okay, there we go. There we are.
My question is, if somebody's trying to control you,
right,
in any way, do you give your power away? What do you do exactly?
Oh, no, not at all. You cannot give your power away if you love the very power you are. The real power is unconditional love. That is your greatest power. My goodness, I had a woman one time, she was recently, I gave her a Skype session, and she was abused by her boss. And she said, I was abused by my husband, I abused by my boyfriend, and these things happening. Now my boss is killing me, yelling at me for no reason at all. And she said, what do I do? Do I give my power away? I said, no. This is what you do. I said, say I am, and look your boss in the eyes when he's shouting at you. Just look him into the eyes. Don't waver, don't look away, don't do anything. Just look into his eyes and say, I am. She did it. He never bothered her again. So you don't give your power away. You you reclaim your love. You don't fight back. If you fight back, it means you're weak. You see, you don't need to fight back. You need to claim the very strength that you are. And when you do that, the strength will show. A person will never abuse you when they see you as strong. When you look at them unwaveringly, because when a person is weak, they look away. They don't want to look at you. They avoid you with their eyes. When you look them straight into the eye, you're saying, I am not afraid. I am. And they'll stop. Try it out and you'll find that it's true. You don't have to fight. You don't have to do any harm to the other. Just claim that you cannot be controlled because you are in power. And that power is not a struggle. That power is not aggressive. That power is love itself. The highest, strongest. See, people think of love and loving as weak. Oh my God, it's not at all. You know, all the greatest people in the world, the greatest, were loving people. But they were not afraid. A very good example is the life of Jesus. He came to earth and actually was crucified to show that how much he loved us. That's another case, and you don't need to make it religious. He was a human being. The strength, the power, the love that he had was total forgiveness. Yesterday we saw a little clip where they were trying to find out how he rose up in 3 days, because this is the third day, isn't it?
Tomorrow's Easter, yes.
Tomorrow's
it's Easter in
Easter,
some parts
right.
of the world.
So
yeah.
it's perfect. Well, he actually, when they buried him, they put big, heavy logs to lock the place in place, and they were guards all around. But the next day he was gone. And then how it happened is that the very man who put the lance into his side wanted to say that somehow or other somebody robbed his body. And then you see, and this is a movie, of course, but it was done very nicely. You see that the very man that actually gave him this last sword and killed, Jesus put his hand on the heart of this one, the very man that killed him at the end.
He forgave him.
He forgave him.
That's the last thing he said.
The
too.
last thing. Yeah. His love was so strong, so beautiful, so complete, that fear could not exist in him at all. It is fear that attacks. So when you give your power away, that means you're afraid.
So when he said, I am not, he was in the world, but not of it, basically meant he recognized he was coming from the emptiness.
That's right.
He was one with the Father, or the emptiness.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. Yes. And this is not a religious thing. This is fact. Yeah.
And his message was to tell us that we have eternal life.
And that we have eternal life. Yeah.
And even if emptiness seems scary, emptiness is the guarantee of eternal life. And when you say, I am, some people may have been familiar with Ramana Maharshi or other people that use that term. And sometimes what happens is common terms become conceptualized. So if you can't quite grasp it, you can acknowledge that the one thing you know for sure is I exist.
That's right.
And that's it.
I am is claiming your eternal nature. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great opportunity to be enlightened as well, because, you have to fundamentally get rid of fear. You have to arrive to the realization of I am. And that presents just an amazing opportunity, right? It's great.
Gratitude.
Right. Right.
There's gratitude.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So every circumstance become one that will lead to awakening.
that becomes every opportunity, you take it to say I am. And it leads you back to yourself. It leads you to the strength that you are, to the beauty that you are all the time. And these titles about somebody is fully enlightened and fully this, fully that, get rid of these things. You are immediately awake the moment you realize you are I am, and you live from it. And that can be achieved by anyone at any time. Proved by that young woman who came from China in just 3 days. She awoke. She surprised me, but it was wonderful. It was like it was said to me to say, Burt, you know, people can be awakened very fast if their love of truth is the most important thing in their life.
And you think they can sustain that awakened state?
Oh, yes, because it's truth. It's the truth. When something is true, nobody can take it away. It's always there. You cannot lose it. You lose it only because you think you lose it. But if you think you lose it, then you've lost it. But you haven't really lost it. You only lost it in your mind. But remember that your mind controls your life. Really. So what we have to do is listen to our heart. Our heart knows the truth and is the truth. Our heart is the love that we carry. And so we have to establish that until it's so established that nobody and nothing can take that away. But until then, we go through 5 stages, like we discussed. You see? You hem and hawk, and then you fall, and you try again, and then you go back and forth until finally says, but it's true. And it's true, nobody can take it away because it's true, it's eternal. It's forever.
Great. Thank you so much, Burt.
Thank you.
We've really enjoyed it.
Okay. Has anybody left or?
No, they're all there. I'd like to read a quote from Burt's book before we leave, something to contemplate on. And also because it's Easter weekend and the message from Jesus essentially was that there is no death and we have eternal life.
Oh, okay. So please listen. Yeah.
Once there is the direct experience of emptiness in its true natural state, then one is never the same after. The taste of unconditional love cleanses the subconscious from its past ego conditioning, fears, and phobias. The fear of physical death is wiped out, and in its place is a peace that never goes away.
Thank you, sweet.
So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.